G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to G'day Bitcoin. So much game theory is playing out at the moment. We've got Texas, Malaysia, China, miners. Let's just dive straight into it. This is one of the bullish weeks that I've seen in Bitcoin, at least in the last 12 months. There's so much to cover. Diving straight into what's going on in Texas. History, Texas rep pledges to push bill for the state to buy Bitcoin for a strategic reserve. Another one bites the dust. We've got so much to dive into. Malaysia's largest bank says when the US establishes Bitcoin reserves, other countries will follow with increasing demand. Supply shock is incoming. I completely agree. Now over to Russia. State Duma Deputy Anton urges Finance Minister of Russia to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It's happening. It's really happening. Listen to what Trump has to say in regards to Bitcoin as he comes in.
You're embracing crypto, very different from the previous administration. Strategic petroleum reserve like for crypto?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to do something great with crypto because we don't want China or anybody else, and not just China, but others are embracing it, and we want to be the head.
You're embracing crypto.
Trump wants to be a number one. Good for number go up technology, maybe a little bit bittersweet. We can dive into that. But first, let's look at where we are on the time chain. Let's me hit refresh and make sure it's all gravy, baby. Are we going to go refresh? My keyboard's not working this morning. It's infuriating. I just need to get a USB one, not a Bluetooth. Anyway, we're at block height 874,451. The exchange rate, check out the sats per dollar. Let's look at the USD per BTC first. 99,876 United States dollars will get you one Bitcoin, or for every $1, which is actually a pretty bloody good deal, you get 1,001 Satoshis per dollar. Shout out to everyone watching live, watching the replay. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We're going to get into a bit of a banter at the end if you're hanging around, but we have so much to cover. It's crazy. What's happened this week? Let's set the stage before we dive too deep into the game theory with Senator Haggerty on crypto regulation.
But I'm curious, Senator, there's a lot of people, and a lot of your peers probably, people who I talk to, who really think that crypto is a waste of capital and is not something that United States should double down on, and get so upset when they hear this talk of different states, whether it's Pennsylvania, now Texas, or us doing something nationally with a Bitcoin reserve. What was your aha moment? Why do you think this has real value for this country?
Well, it's taken some time, and my viewpoint has evolved. As you remember, Kelly, I was the U.S. ambassador to Japan. I saw a massive heist take place there with CoinCheck. I was deeply concerned about, where that cryptocurrency might have landed. But as I dug into the technology and saw the potential of the blockchain, where this could go, it's absolutely amazing. And then if I think about just basic principles of a decentralized currency like this, the freedom and the liberty that it supports, there's a lot of very positive aspects to this, and I think America should be at the forefront of it.
But I'm curious, Senator,
America should be at the forefront of it. So what is going on in the world of Bitcoin? NASDAQ listed Chinese company Nanolabs increased its Bitcoin holdings to 360 Bitcoin, worth $36 million. Game theory is playing out. We're going to hear this word over and over and over again. Game theory. What is it? We can break it down, but a little bit more on the Texas State Rep Giovanni's officially files for the strategic Bitcoin reserve for the state of Texas. A bill to be entitled an act relating to the establishment of a Bitcoin reserve within the state treasury and the management of cryptocurrency by government, all agencies or entities. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Texas, this act may be sized the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act. Chapter 403 Government Code is amended by adding Subchapter U to read as follows. Subchapter U, Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. In the subchapter, Bitcoin means the decentralized digital asset created by a peer-to-peer network, which operates with no central authority or banks. 2, cold storage means a method of storing private keys required to transact in Bitcoin with a nexus to a secure physical location, protected from unauthorized access and isolated from any network communications. They're doing good. Now, that's pretty bloody surprising. Over here in Australia, AMP, one of the big super funds, which is like our retirement accounts, pension system. Basically, you work while you're slaving away. They take some of your money and they put it into the pension system, the superannuation system. You can't touch that until you hit retirement age. They have locked Australians out of exposure to Bitcoin, AMP will looks like they're starting to buy it. They're not going to allow people to self-select a Bitcoin. You can only do that through a self-managed super fund, which is what I have. It's strongly recommended because you can hold Bitcoin in self-custody, but it's a start. And I feel like Australia is pretty backwards in regards to Bitcoin adoption. Slowly, then suddenly. This is real cool. It's just a shame that Bitcoin's at $99,814. Nice big red buy button today, but you know, they could have been here years ago. But best next time is now. We have Prince Philip of Serbia. Bitcoin strategic reserves. They're already happening behind closed doors. I was on a podcast yesterday with Samson. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. That podcast will be dropping soon. Eric Dale will be dropping soon. Lawrence Lepard will be dropping soon. Robin Sayo will be dropping soon. So many, like heaps and heaps and heaps that I've been doing. Too many I can't recall right away. But over the next couple of weeks, there'll be some really epic podcasts if you haven't already. But we're talking about this Bitcoin strategic reserve, and obviously Samson Mao knows Prince Philip pretty well. It does sound like a lot of central banks are accumulating secret, and maybe they're not going to come out publicly. But I think there's really good reason, especially after my chat talking with Samson, to know that other nation states are already front-running the US. Prince Philip, Bitcoin strategic reserves are already happening behind closed doors. Pretty much what Samson said. AMP, super fun, a little bit more context. So bullish, every Aussie, especially boomers, and shout out to Bitcoin. Just hodl it. I absolutely love it. Just hodl it. Just hodl it. So bullish, every Aussie, especially boomers, knows AMP. It has become too big and its potential too great to ignore any longer. As a result, AMP has decided to invest a portion of its superannuation assets into Bitcoin. I remember working a 9 to 5 and the super rep came in there. I talked to him and I'd already gone self-managed super, but I wanted to help everyone else out. And I said, like, can you get Bitcoin through the fund? They're like, no. I'm like, why not? And then we got into a bit of an argument. He was saying it's worthless trash. I don't know what Bitcoin price would have been, 18K. Maybe even under 20,000 Australian, but they're waking up. They're getting there. It's good to see. AMP is absolutely massive. It's huge. But what's even better is Bitcoin and self-custody. Channel partners, the Bitcoin way. The best. I've got a podcast coming out with Tony. It is so fire. The guy's my favorite in all of Bitcoin. I used to work for Steve Jobs. But anyway, the whole team's got 25 years cybersecurity experience. The best part, the first 30 minutes is free. And what they do is they just educate you. If you've got Bitcoin on the exchange and you want to get it off and you want to get in cold storage in a way that can never be taken away, confiscated, nobody can come after it. Whoever that anybody is, it's yours. It allows you to become a free, sovereign individual, to truly exit the matrix, and they stack it on top. So that's step number one. Look after your Bitcoin, protect your Bitcoin. You can look at inheritance planning like the cybersecurity, multi-sig as that net worth goes right up. Number two, protect your devices. You can get de-Googled phones, secure your online privacy. And then step number three is get a Plan B passport. And it's actually very cheap, very, very affordable. And it's just a draw card, a cool card on the future if your government goes tyrannical. You don't need to go through all steps 1, 2, and 3, but definitely everyone, please master your Bitcoin self-custody. If you need help, again, the first 30 minutes is free. Could not recommend them enough. Daniel Batten, like this last week, there's just so much bullishness coming out. Bitcoin 99,800, like being just under 100,000. I saw it at this morning when I was getting ready. It's just a freaking fantastic opportunity. I can't imagine really Bitcoin anything less than $1 million now. And I know we're going to 10 million, and it's going to take time to play out. And if we get it this cycle, I'd be bloody disappointed. I want the cheap sats for a long time. But everything, it's just predetermined. It's destined. As long as, because I got into an argument with Scott Phillips, the CIO of, not an argument, but a nice back and forth yesterday, the CIO of the Motley Fool, like Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Because he said nothing's guaranteed in life. I'm like, yeah, well, I believe you. I agree with you. Except when it comes to Bitcoin, like 100% that's going to $1 million. He's like, nothing's certain. People get brainwashed and they stop choosing. I'm like, yes, I understand that. And yes, there's caveats. As long as Bitcoin stays, number one, decentralized, number two, secure, in the words of Jeff Booth, we're going to $1 million. Everything else I agreed with him with. That's my belief, not financial advice. You do you, but we're going up and to the right forever. Laura and Adora. Supply shock news since mid-November. Mara and Riot have raised $2.2 billion between them to buy Bitcoin. Mara $1.7 billion, Riot $0.5 billion. The Bitcoin mining network is on track to flip from net distributors to net acquirers of Bitcoin within the next 12 months. Probably nothing. I think it's probably something there. A little bit of an understatement by the great Daniel Batten. Riot, you know, sailors jumping on the gravy train here. Riot is a company on the Bitcoin standard. They announced a private offering, $500 million of convertibles per shareholder request. Wild times. So Microsoft board or the shareholders went for a vote. Is like 0.05% of them voted for Bitcoin. 0.05% to add Bitcoin. 99.45% said nah, not interested. You're like, what? What? That just shows how early we are. That's so sad. They've got 80-something billion dollars in cash sitting there melting away, losing purchasing power to inflation. Even if there's 5%, they would have served themselves. So I see Brian Dement, he's the author of Parallel, which is a fantastic book for the Christmas holidays. This is like the second book or where we are. This is like the Orange Pill book. If you're new to Bitcoin, start with Bitcoin evangelism. And Parallel, this is like, what is Bitcoin? And then this is like the why of Bitcoin and where we're going. It's incredible, both of them. But with what Brian was saying, sorry, went off track. What Brian was saying is Microsoft will eventually get Bitcoin at the price they deserve. And then he asked X to remind him of that post in the next 5 years. I kind of agree. I think it's happening more and more and more. It's unfortunate, but whether Bitcoin's at 100,000 or a million, I don't know if it really matters that much for these large institutions. It matters for us to be able to front run them. But, you know, even from like, so we've got a 10x like in a very short period of time. Say it's like 4-6 years, maybe it takes shorter, longer, whatever. But then from there, we've got another 10x to $10 million. Maybe that takes another 4 to 6 years. Like I was talking to Eric Dale, and he's talking about like $100 million Bitcoin, like over a longer period of time. I don't know if we're going to see that in our lifetime. But what would be interesting about that is one sat would be worth $1, if that was to ever play out. But anyway, we dive into that in the podcast that will be dropping soon. Wild times, completely agree. Now, this sort of broke X and broke a couple of people's minds the other day, including Peter Schiff. Feeling bullish yet? Always feeling bullish. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you can smash the like button, and let's get into Sailor.
So the very simple idea is buy 20 or 25% of the Bitcoin network on behalf of the U.S. government, catalyze the development of that world reserve capital network, and then let all the Chinese and the Russians and the foreigners sell all their other assets and buy Bitcoin, and then the money flows into the United States. If you want to put a great twist on it, dump your gold, sell all the U.S. gold, buy Bitcoin, then the trade is free because you could buy 5 million Bitcoin for the cost of the gold. You will demonetize the entire gold asset class, and our enemies hold gold in their banks, so their assets would go to zero. Our assets would go to $100 trillion, and we would control the world's reserve capital network as well as the world's reserve currency network.
As usual, you're painting a grand and vivid picture, Michael, with this kind of stuff.
I think she maybe feels a little bit hurt that she didn't buy Bitcoin last time Michael Saylor called him poor. But what Saylor's saying there is the US government could sell all the gold and they could buy Bitcoin. They could demonetize gold. They could have like $100 trillion in assets. They could stay the world reserve currency. Talking to Samson, we dive real deep into it. It's possible. It happens, which is absolutely insane, absolutely absurd. Do we want the US government as Bitcoin holders to have such a huge concentrated power? Probably not. Do we have any control over what they do or don't do? Probably not. All we can do is definitely get Bitcoin off the exchange, put it into self-custody. Crazy times. David Bailey. It just keeps going. Like this week, the dopamine overload, it's just nation state after nation state, company after company, central bank after central bank being orange pilled, super funds, retirement accounts. Like we had Allianz, last week by crazy amount of MicroStrategy. At least 4 new companies have greenlit At least 4 new countries, not companies, have greenlit a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This is happening. G7 of Bitcoin has evolved from a joke to serious concept very quickly. Like, very serious. It's not a game anymore, even though game theory is playing out. It's a very serious game, and people are playing for keeps these days. They're competing for the world's hardest, scarcest form of money that's ever existed. I think it's going to be insane. I can see here, just like looking in the comment section real quickly, Lightning Goat, Sean, the days of cheap sats are about over. It's entirely possible we hit 10 million in the next few years. I think the cycles are over. I want to hold on to that thought and I want to come back to it. Let's put a pin in it, because I actually don't disagree, but it's a little bit more nuanced. We're not going to get to $10 million overnight. People are like, we need to get to 1 million first, so let's get past, 100,000. It's coming. It's just math. Anyway, in my opinion, Bitcoin superpower is very powerful meme. Bitcoin superpower is a very powerful meme. The world's a bloody meme at the moment. There's just not enough Bitcoin for everyone to be one. You in or you out? I'm in, David. Let's go. Let us know. Are you in or are you out? Bitcoin Magazine, Vancouver could move to integrate Bitcoin into city finances. Bloomberg, it's happening. I hope so for the Canadian people. They deserve the government to do something right for once. It would be nice if the Australian government therefore follows afterwards. Clowns, just front run them, holding self-custody. This is pretty interesting. So, just the adoption where we are within Bitcoins, it's incredible. As CEO of Rumble, Chris.
This is a widely adopted currency, and contrasted to what your previous guest said, it is being used. It's being used multiple different ways. And one of the ways that I would like to see it being used is on Rumble, where creators can receive donations in BTC or Tether. They can receive donation or even get paid in BTC or Tether or US dollars, whatever they prefer. And that's kind of the way we're moving the company. And that's the future. We see it around the world.
That's the future. It truly is. If you're new to Bitcoin, well done. It's absolutely crazy. Actually, please just read as many Bitcoin books as possible. Like, read all the Bitcoin books. Go down the rabbit hole. It's not a 5-minute conversation. It's going to take you about 100 hours of serious study to really grasp what this is. And I urge you to do it as quick as possible, because say we're at $99,828. Tomorrow we could be at 110,000. The day after we could be back at 85,000. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's going to play out. But Bitcoin gets insanely volatile, and that's inherently baked into it. It's a feature. It's not a bug. It's a good thing. Bitcoin needs the volatility. It needs the volatility to keep marching up, but it's not just going to march up like this. Like Lightning Goat is saying, he can see $10 million of Bitcoin per Bitcoin in the next couple of years. Completely agree. That may take 6, 10, 15 years, but it's going to happen in a relatively short period of time, in my opinion. But it's not going to be like this. You're not just going to come in, and maybe you just come in and then it goes up and up and up. Like if you got in a month ago, the day after the election, Bitcoin was at $67,000. Now we're at 99,800. So yes, it feels like it went straight up like that, but we did hit 101,000. We come back down to 92, and then we'll march back up. These things happen. Please just make sure that you can grasp that, because you don't want to get shaken out. You want to hold Bitcoin for as long as possible. That'd be my advice. It's what's worked for me. But I think by reading the books, studying the books as much as possible, what Bitcoin is, it'll give you a better chance to be able to hold on to it. And say like Bitcoin goes to $500,000 the cycle. Just hypothetically, I've picked a number. We get a 50% drawdown, which is pretty small compared to Bitcoin's history. It's had like 76, 86% drawdowns, but only a 50% drawdown. That's still a $250,000 loss. So the fiat numbers are going to get bigger. The percentage is probably going to get smaller. But please hold on, because there'll be psychopaths that come in and understand that the 50% drop is a buy opportunity, not a sell opportunity. But it's not going to be easy, unfortunately, for everyone. It's enjoyable. It's an amazing ride, but it's definitely not easy. Now, let me hit refresh on this. It's pretty much about that. 99,813 in the last 24 hours. We've had a high of 102,500. 99,400 was the low. What are we the last week? 101,000. Yeah, so we hit a new all-time high. Not a new all-time high, but we hit a new high in the last 24 hours for the last week. The all-time high ever. And this is an amazing opportunity. We're $4,000 cheaper than the all-time high. And we're going into probably a pretty insane Santa Claus rally, in my opinion. Sort of hope it doesn't happen. I'd just like to be able to stack for a couple more months, but I fear that it will happen. So I just follow my plan. I just DCA all the way. 7-day range, I mean all-time high, 103,679, all-time low. I remember when Bitcoin, it was probably exactly at that $67 US. I first heard about Bitcoin at $96 Australian, and I didn't buy it. I started buying it 300x more expensive. You know, like talking about game theory, Vladimir Putin says Bitcoin could be a useful asset as Russia's reserves remain frozen. And the reason I bring this up is, well, Bitcoin is the most useful asset. But Putin suggested Bitcoin is a better alternative to foreign currency reserves. Of course it is. Why accumulate reserves if they can be lost so easily? He said in an investing conference. The reason I bring that up is just please get your Bitcoin off the exchange. Put it in self-custody. Just do it. Like if you need a reason, FTX as an exchange that went down, people lost their coins. Mt. Gox went down. BlockFi, Celsius, 3AC. The list goes on and on and on. Please get it off the exchange today if you need help. Again, the Bitcoin way, it's free for the first 30 minutes, but do it. Just protect yourself. You've got generational wealth here. Just in, Bitcoin ETFs surpassed 500,000 Bitcoin in cumulative net inflows, the fastest growing ETFs in history. You can't stop Bitcoin, and it's going to continue to keep marching up. I'm really interested to see what happens with Wall Street and how they rebalance their portfolios, playing traditional finance games on a new financial asset. That's going to be interesting. But Walker, I absolutely love and respect Walker at Walker America. Somebody check out the Bitcoin podcast if you haven't already, and tell Walker I said g'day. 1 out of 4. 1 out of every $4 has been printed in the last 5 years. In 2018, the average American home cost you $260,000 and over 400 Bitcoin. Today, the average American home is now 460,000. It would cost you less than 5 Bitcoin. Former CFTC chairman Chris diving in on here straight from the horse's mouth.
We live at a time where 1 out of every $4 has been printed in the last 5 years. We are actively debasing our currency. And at the same time, Bitcoin has, into its design, programmed scarcity. You can never have more than a certain amount of Bitcoin. And so the dollar is depreciating, Bitcoin is appreciating. Quick factoid. In 2018, the average American home would have cost you over $260,000 and over 400 Bitcoin. Today, the average American home is now over $460,000. It would cost you less than 5 Bitcoin. What's been the better investment of the last 5 years, Bitcoin or dollars?
I mentioned the tweet from Elon Musk. The reason he did that is because the government El Salvador, tiny little Central American country, they embrace crypto.
Yes.
I think it was 2 years ago, I believe now. So they've got 24 months of a track record. Has it worked for them?
Well, I don't know exactly the price, but 2 years ago, Bitcoin would have been less than $30,000 a Bitcoin. Today, it's over $100,000. So they've seen threefold increase of their value of their reserves in El Salvador.
So
it looks like a pretty good investment.
It looks like it's a pretty good deal for them.
Pretty good deal for them.
It has been a pretty good deal, and I want to dive into El Salvador. Is it coming up right now? This is pretty bloody interesting. I actually talked to Samson Mao in regards to this, and we went really, really deep, because when I first read this news, I was a little bit concerned. I thought El Salvador has sold their soul to the IMF. The IMF, I have absolutely no respect for. I think they come in and they suppress countries because he who controls the money controls the world. In the words of Rockefeller, I think they're an evil institution. And El Salvador is so close to like being free of their grasp, but they're talking to him and they've made a deal with the devil, it looks like. But all hope is maybe not lost. Like after talking to Samson Mao, what could be happening here may be so freaking poetic. It's insane. I can see Lightning Goats in the chat saying all this good news is totally surreal. I've been thinking it would happen someday for over a decade. But now that it's here, I'm blown away. Lightning Goats, just a quick fun factoid, is you can pay Lightning on YouTube. Like follow Lightning Goats. You can pay Lightning, you can feed these goats. It's crazy. It's incredible. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, The IMF, $1.3 billion loan for El Salvador, but it comes with frickin' strings attached. And it's sad, bloody sad. They're just evil. So they expect to finalize the deal in 2 to 3 weeks by agreeing to make Bitcoin acceptance voluntary instead of mandatory for businesses. That's how evil they are. The IMF can come in there, they can dictate terms, and it's always about Bitcoin. And they've gone in there and said, hey, to other countries, you can't buy Bitcoin if you want a loan from us, because if you buy Bitcoin, you're going to be able to break free from us. But what may be poetically sweet is a couple of things, and this is all speculation. They reckon they've got $3 trillion worth of gold reserves. Obviously, it's going to cost a lot to mine. It's not going to be $3 trillion in profit. Maybe they use that $1.2 billion to mine the gold, sell the gold to be able to buy the Bitcoin. That's one theory. It's possible. Or they use that $1.2 billion to be able to pay for things. And then instead of using money from tax and stuff to be able to pay for those things they're using the loan for, they can funnel that into Bitcoin. Obviously, they cannot use that 1.2 billion directly from the IMF straight into Bitcoin. They can't do that. But instead of the money being spent on whatever they're going to spend the IMF money on, they can just redirect that into Bitcoin. I think that could play out. It'll be interesting. I think we're going to know soon enough, which is so great. The space moves so quick. And they're going to want to act very, very quickly. Now, BlackRock, there's a little bit of concern here. They shuffle approximately half their client Bitcoin into thousands of new wallets, approximately 600 Bitcoin in each wallet, as speculation to why everyone's waiting on official word. Simon Dixon chiming in, my guess is that BlackRock is moving Bitcoin from Coinbase custody to the Bank of New York Mellon custody. Keep it in the family, and it'll be interesting to see what's going on. And none of the ETF holders voted for it to move, which they never had a chance to, which is fine because you're going into like a gate-kept community, not your keys, not your coins. Just another reason to get your Bitcoin off the exchange. Hold spot Bitcoin, at least a decent amount of spot Bitcoin, whether that's 0.1 or whatever it is. But a little bit, so you've got a draw card on the future in self-custody, not your keys, not your coins. And then you don't need to worry about what they are or aren't doing, or if a couple of them are going to go missing. US Treasury just called Bitcoin digital gold. Brought this up last week, but it's like amazing. The clip of Jerome Powell saying that Bitcoin's not really, and this is paraphrasing, Bitcoin's not coming for cash, it's coming for gold as a store of value. Primary use case, like the US Treasury. The US Treasury, like this is insane. Like all this news today, Putin, Russia, Malaysia, China, Texas, the miners, companies, pension funds, the US bloody Treasury Department, everything is turning like pro-bullish, apart from like MSNBC. Anyway, primary use case for Bitcoin seems to be a store of value, aka digital gold. US Treasury Department. In a decentralized finance DeFi world, speculative interest seems to have played a prominent role in the growth of digital tokens thus far. Cruising with Borgie. What cold wallet do you reckon in Australia? I'm using CoinSpot if that helps. CoinSpot, it's altcoin casino, like they have it in there if you're using it to buy Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure they've got pretty cheap fees. They're fast. They've been around for a long time. They've got a lot of liquidity. I'm not endorsing them, just saying, they are one of the older ones here. So that's fine using it. But yeah, definitely don't keep your Bitcoin on the exchange. Hardware wallets, coldware wallets, cruising with Borgie. Look at two. If you're experienced, look at the cold cards, a really good one to be able to look into. Otherwise, if you're fairly new to the space, the foundation device is another one. What you want to look for really, and like sort of the minimum requirements from my point of view, and other people differ, is stay the fuck away from Ledger and Trezor. They're absolutely horrible. They're garbage. Nobody should be pushing those on anyone at all. Don't use Ledger or Trezor. They're absolutely L's. Absolutely suck. But aside from that, open source, Bitcoin only, air-gapped. Your keys, your device never touches your computer, never touches the internet. It's a dumb device. That would be what I'd look at. And please stay away from Ledger and Trezor. Ledger being the number one worst, Trezor being tied number one worst or a close second. I wouldn't recommend any. I'd recommend that you study and look into those two, though, and make sure you're buying from official websites, foundation devices. Like, search for them on X, make sure they're a verified account. Make sure that big Bitcoiners follow them. I'm following both CoinKite and foundation devices, the real ones. So, you know, use that, triangulate your research, and then when you get your hardware wallet, wherever it's from, open the package slowly. It's a good idea to be able to film that unboxing package. Yes or no? And you're given a digital thing which can't delete. Maybe don't film it. I'm going to reevaluate that advice. Scratch that. Don't film it. You don't want a digital record. But when you go in, usually they'll come in a bag. The bag's going to have a serial number on it. When you open that bag, it should have a serial number that's ripped off the top of the bag inside it. Just check everything's right. Make sure that it's an original device. It hasn't been tampered with. Just do it very, very slowly each step of the way. It's empowering, 100% responsibility, and you become a sovereign individual. You fuck it up, you lose all your Bitcoin though. So please go slow. If you need help, if you need hand-holding the Bitcoin way, that's what they're there for. But just take your time. And there's enough tutorials out there. Slow and steady wins the race. And just don't panic. Send a test transaction. Make sure it arrives. Put your keys, delete your keys, put your keys back on there. Make sure your keys are in steel. And that's pretty good basics. But the US Treasury Department, we're so back. Digital gold, bloody hell. Charles Schwab predicts Bitcoin could hit $1 million with government adoption. If you don't have at least 10% of your portfolio on Bitcoin, you risk falling behind. It's a bit of a longer video.
And that will.
But why not? We'll listen.
What? Where does it go? What's your price target for Bitcoin?
So I think in the short term, we're going to see one of two cases. The first case is we're going to have some sideways action between 110 and downwards to 80, and we'll see some chop. The second scenario, and that will come either in the short term or in the medium term, is once we have the Bitcoin Act, which is currently under consideration, passed, where the U.S. government will be buying Bitcoin into its reserves, as well as other countries and other corporates for their treasury assets as well, we could see a 500K Bitcoin or $1 million Bitcoin. Sky is really the limit here.
And why? What would drive it there?
So Bitcoin is inherently a scarce asset. You only have 21 million Bitcoins. And the Bitcoin Act, for example, proposes buying 200,000 Bitcoins a year, which would significantly drive up the price as there's a finite supply.
And what about use cases? I was talking about this with a guest on a previous show on Trading 360, just in terms of, President-elect Trump has talked about, the one rule of Bitcoin is you don't sell your Bitcoin. Yeah. But do you expect more people to actually start using it in terms of an actual currency?
For sure. So I don't think that Bitcoin is inherently the type of currency that you buy a cup of coffee with. There are places where people do that. So for example, El Salvador, which I've written about extensively, they use the Lightning Network for those types of smaller transactions, but you don't necessarily need it for that. That's not the prime use case. The prime use case of Bitcoin is a store of value. So when we think about money, there's usually three characteristics that people ascribe to money, the economists ascribe to money, and that is method of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. So there's thousands of methods of exchange around the world. Every currency around the world is a method of exchange. Unit of account, however, there's only a handful. There's the dollar, there's the euro, there's the yen, and now there's Bitcoin. But when you talk about store of value, none of those things are considered stores of value because of their inflationary properties. So if you're a high net worth individual living in the US, you're not storing your value in a case of cash. You're storing your value in buildings, in businesses, in sports teams, in gold, and now in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is that similar type of property. It's just digital, which makes it that much easier to move, to sell, to trade, to transfer it across borders. So it's basically digital, it's property but improved.
And how much of a portfolio do you think should be allocated to cryptocurrency at this point? And has that changed now that we have a very pro-crypto president coming into office?
Absolutely. I think if you don't have at least 10% of your investment account in Bitcoin or Bitcoin-related assets, you're going to fall significantly behind.
Could not agree more. 10% minimum. If you don't have at least 10%, you're going to fall significantly behind. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's freaking essential. Doesn't even matter if people believe it's going to play out or not. Because say you allocate 10%. and it fails, you've still got 90%. However, if you allocate 10% and it does what people know that it's going to do, it's going to save that other 90%. That's just how it's going to work out, in my opinion. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. It's just non-stop bullishness. Charles Schwab, they predict could hit $1 million. I predict that it will hit $1 million. It just depends on what time frame. And you need to have 10%. What the hell? It's incredible. And Bitcoin's at $99,640 and you need to have 10%. And the realistic side of this is the higher Bitcoin price goes, the higher the percentage that you're going to need to be able to catch up. Otherwise, you're going to risk falling behind. Well done, everyone that's been here for. Well done to everyone that's just here. Just well done to everyone that is here right now. Well done. Keep studying, keep going, keep stacking. And, some people like, maybe I need to get a little bit of gold. But this guy, Breadman, I bought a kilo of gold March 23. The price was 74K, which was 3.33 Bitcoin. Today, the value is 94K, which is 0.95 Bitcoin. In a little less than 2 years, my gold's bar value increased 27% in fiat dollars. But lost 72% of its value in Bitcoin. Gold is collapsing in front of us. Everything is collapsing in front of us. Inflation is collapsing in front of Bitcoin holders. House prices, steak, food, rent, electricity, car prices, tickets to the moon, whatever it is. Like, not tickets to the moon, but you can go to space. It's getting cheaper and cheaper in Bitcoin with Virgin. It's absolutely insane. Everything's collapsing in front of us. Well done. But gold, it's turned into a bit of a shitcoin. I'm playing. I still think gold has a little bit of value to play. And I dive into it with Lawrence Apard with that podcast coming out. The reason I'm an advocate for Bitcoin, this is why I do this. As Aussies are told to eat the bugs. This is an agenda that's coming from the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab wants you to eat the bugs. I don't know where it is in this book, Parallel, but I've got a saying, Brian quoted me, read the books or eat the bugs. I truly believe it's this agenda and it's coming out. Like, they're literally pre-programming people. The West's other agenda is to own nothing and be happy. So, like, we're moving towards digital IDs, CBDCs, dystopian shit. We can see what's happening in China with them. Not that great. They could come here. They could be even worse. They could not be as bad as what I think. But by having Bitcoin in self-custody, properly storing it, it doesn't matter. They can play their freaking games, get a second passport, and they can do whatever. And I'm not going to eat the bugs. I'm not going to comply with that bullshit. It's absolutely insane, absurd. And people may want to. They may like to. But that should be a choice, not force onto it. And Bitcoin gives you that option just to be able to say, fuck, no. Excuse the language, but there's no way that I'm eating these bugs. And Bitcoin's the reason that I won't be. And it can be the reason for so many people. So that's why I'm here to just hopefully inspire people to stack as much Bitcoin as possible, to inspire people to study Bitcoin, to then stack as much Bitcoin as possible. So you don't need to go down. Like, this is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm sure many people eat bugs. I'm sure some of them even taste nice. I have no doubt about it. I'm sure they do. People go to Thailand, they have fried crickets, fried grasshoppers. Whatever. I'm sure they're good, not something I've tried, nor am I inclined to try. But that's a choice. When meat or when eating options, dietary options are forced onto the population, I don't think that's good. And we didn't grow up eating bugs, and they're trying to move us away from red meat and then put bova in the meat and stuff. Get to know your rancher, get to know your farmer, and you can opt out. Try the bugs if you want to, but fuck, these people, they're crazy. So that's news with the fast facts. I'm going to get into a little bit of a banter if you hang around just for a couple of minutes. This morning, I haven't gone live, I don't think, all week. It's been pretty hectic. So how is everyone? It's freaking amazing time. I did see one comment. I'm sure I'll get to it, but where is it? Watcher123 would have thought it should be going stratospheric by now. What he's meaning is that Bitcoin should just be absolutely escalating. We're up like 30 grand in the last month. That's a pretty big move. like when we have these big jumps, like it is strange, like with all this news, if people realize what all this news was and they allocated that 10%, yes, Bitcoin would already be at $1 million. It should already be at $1 million, in my opinion. That's how I think of it. It's just destined to go there. Is that delusional? Maybe. But anywhere between now and $1 million is just noise. But when people wake up, we're just going to keep jumping. But a $30,000 gain to go sideways, if we're sideways for a month or something, could be really nice, really healthy, and allow us to have another leg up. If we just keep going like that, we've got all this like air that we can crash back down in, where we go up, we build a solid foundation, then we can go up, build a solid foundation. That's the way I see it. I agree. It's crazy that the world's so asleep. It's so crazy that the Microsoft shareholders are so asleep. Like, we're so early, but when they wake up, it's going to be violent. It's going to be violent, really, for at least the next 10 years, volatility wise. You know, the super cycle, 4-year cycle's broken. Maybe they never existed. Like, if you look back over the last 15, 16 years, this is Bitcoin. But maybe like we're going like this, and then we start going like this. I think, after talking to Samson, within the S-curve adoption, the parabolic is that, what we traditionally call this cycle over the next 2 years remaining, or do we need to wait, 4 years? We're truly about to go parabolic. Like, you could really say from 0 to 100,000 is parabolic. G'day from Alabama, my Satoshi. I'll start at the start. G'day to 21 Spiels from Germany. Johnny Midas, good to see you this morning. Alex Bowler, good to see you. Definitely Litecoin as a shitcoin. Lightning Goats, follow Lightning Goats. Feeling bullish. I'm born bullish, always. I'm like, how can you not be? This thing is going up and to the right forever. May the parabolic bull run be with us, Bitcoin fam. Ricky, shout out to you this morning, tuned in from Colorado, USA. Bitcoin bull. I expect a big pump next week, and we are going into Christmas time. And the Christmas rally, we could see one. It sort of feels like we're winding up, we're coiling up, getting tighter and tighter, and bang, we'll see. Over Christmas and New Year's, if you've ever experienced one, it's pretty freaking wild. Really freaking wild. I fear it's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but I fear that we probably will. So the way I just DCA all the way, and I don't try time the markets, not at this stage, not while it's so bloody cheap still. But yeah, next pump, next week, the week after, it feels like it, doesn't it? I think it's getting ready to do something, a big move. All this good news, totally surreal. Been thinking it would happen someday for over a decade, but now that it's here, I'm blown away. Me too, like we all knew. It's just sort of mathematically destined, or like, was Bitcoin discovered or was it created? Discovered or invented? Who really knows? It just seems to work. Follow truth, follow the laws of reality, and create reality in a better way. Look at that, 99,911. Even better number. Saw someone screenshot all nines. That was pretty dope. I think even 0.99 as well when they did it. It's a speculative attack using IMF debt. Yeah, I agree. Lightning Goats. Lurker strats. We're fringe dwellers. We get weird looks when we express our worldviews. We're misunderstood by the new. Yeah, unfortunately, I find it very hard to talk to people that do not understand Bitcoin, that have refused to buy Bitcoin, because, they've just got a very narrow worldview. And I'm cutting out more and more people out of my life. Anyone that's like shitcoin only, gone, out. Friends, last 15 years, see you later. I don't want that in my life. And unfortunately, we're at a point in time in human, that conversation is a little bit more nuanced. So don't take me just on that. But yes, to cut someone out of my life that's still shitcoining, that's just an absolutely idiot for doing it. It's the distortion. Like, we're going through the separation of money from state. The fiat system is dying. Everyone's lives are getting, unless they're on Bitcoin, are getting harder and harder financially. We've got an answer. Everything else is distortion, distraction. It's the only people I really want to be able to talk to. Not saying that I won't talk to people that don't have Bitcoin or don't understand it, but it's the people that have just closed their minds off to it and want nothing to do with it. They're the people, unfortunately, that are not going to make it. Cruising with Borgie, keep buying regardless of the price. Mate, you're winning. You're absolutely on point there. We would have thought it should be going stratospheric, 100%. Alabama, have not been to Alabama yet, but sweet home Alabama. All right, yeah, my singing's real bad. My wife's got a really amazing voice on her. She was in a punk rock band as a kid. She still plays gigs. Now it's not what she does, but for a little bit of fun. And she always laughs at how great my vocal tunes are not at all. Got no rhythm, no rhyme, although I like a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of rap. If everyone starts allocating 10%, of the price will explode. People allocate even more, 100%. For example, BlackRock customers allocate 2%, the price would hit $800,000 plus, and that's just them. The whole world is about to foam. I agree. Joe, hey, Sean, can you please state your reasons as to why Trezor is garbage? They leaked everyone's data that bought it. And also, so they did that, and they have censored transactions that were potentially terrorism or money laundering. And terrorism, money laundering, I'm not for that in the slightest. I don't think that's good. But if they can do it to one entity, they can do it to any entity. So that would be why. I know you can run Bitcoin-only software on that. It's open source. I get that. Like they're sort of a little bit close, but they've leaked people's data and they have been known to censor transactions in the past. I wouldn't do that. The biggest risk in Bitcoin is not owning any. Yes, I'd add into that in self-custody. You've got the opportunity. There's enough education. There's enough resources to get it off the exchanges to hold the bearer asset. Please look at studying Bitcoin. Earthbump, good to see you this morning. Just getting in as we're winding down, but it's good to see you this morning. Sean, do something, do anything. I will finalize my beach house property in El Salvador on Monday. Let's go. Celebration. Hell yeah. Bitcoiners are absolutely winning. Do something, do anything. Mate, that is freaking epic. Let's go. Beach house property in El Salvador on Monday. Do something, do anything. Absolutely killing it. Bitcoiners are just changing their lives, changing the world for the better. Just use it as a savings account. 100%. Bitcoin bull, I do not know. I don't want to know who Satoshi is at all. We are all Satoshi, and that's the greatest joy about all of it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. We've got some really epic podcasts coming out. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. But most important, please just do something nice for yourself today. Do something nice for somebody else out there. Have a beautiful day. Be blessed. Peace.
Everything seemed normal. Successful businesses were functioning as they usually should. Money was being placed in the bank as savings. Life was good. Nobody notices anything funny. But 2008 hits and all hell breaks loose. Everything we thought about money and the banking was a complete lie, a complete sham, a Ponzi, a scam. The whole world fell apart and a lot of people got hurt financially. And as a result of this, the Bitcoin white paper was born. But yet the same mistakes keep happening over and over again. People are leaving money on their institutions up until the last straw, FTX, when billions of dollars were lost, families were decimated, life savings were completely wiped, and people were wondering what on earth just happened. We have an option to take full custody of our funds, and that's Bitcoin. We just have to learn the process. It's not hard. It's just something we've never had to do before. Otherwise, the same mistakes are going to keep repeating themselves, and people are going to continue to get hurt over and over and over until they learn you need to exit the system in order to protect yourselves and your loved ones.